Audible, Prabhuji. Now it is audible. Yes. Jnantimirandhasya jnananjanashalakaya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपां साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धौ दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तत्त्वकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि केशवानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि पाञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो कृष्ण पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी विचारिणे विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य सतारि।
Hare Krishna. So continuing on our discussion on the 15th chapter entitled Puruṣottamayoga, or the Yoga of the Supreme Person. So we saw in the first few verses, Krishna is explaining about this material world and comparing it with the Ashwat tree, with the banyan tree. And he says that the roots of this tree, it goes upwards and the branches come downwards. So he's comparing that this material world is a perverted reflection of the reality, which is the spiritual world. And whoever comes here, he gets entangled. What is the cause of entanglement? Why anyone who comes here gets entangled?
Due to unlimited desires.
Yes. Due to unlimited desires. And to fulfill that desire, what he does? Pradeep Prabhu? Quickly, Pradeep Prabhu, are you not?
Yes, he will do the sin.
No. Before it becomes sin, what he does? Ganesh Prabhu, why he gets entangled? What does the desire enable one to perform?
Prabhuji, try to land it over to the material nature.
Yeah, fruitive activities. He performs fruitive activities. So, in the third verse, Krishna is explaining that what one has to do, whoever is caught in this material existence, what he has to do? He has to cut the root of this Ashwat tree. How? Asanga shastrena dridena chitva. What he has to cut? He has to cut the fruitive activities. If one terminates the fruitive activities, then he cannot remain entangled. He can be released. And being released, where he can go. So see, the first three verses talk about the material existence and entanglement in the material world. And the next sets of verses will speak about the spiritual world, where the both can meet. See, there are two trees. Huh? One is the tree which is in the spiritual world, and the other is the tree which is in the material world. So where can both the trees reach? Where they can meet? Kana, are you getting some ABC? Simple, you read that statement, 180 degrees Prabhupada is mentioning in one of the purports, yeah. That if Brahman is the center of all manifestations, you see in the first purport only, the first verse purport. If Brahman is the center of all manifestations, then this material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees, and the other 180 degree constitute the spiritual world, and the material world is the perverted reflection. So the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness, but in reality. So where is the meeting point? If one is real, the other is temporary. One is perverted, the other is original. So both has a meeting point. Na? Where is the meeting point?
Prabhuji, Brahma.
Not a bad attempt, but can you specify how? Not Brahma, it is Brahman.
Prabhuji, because it's written, if Brahman is the center of all manifestations, then
Yes.
the material world is a manifestation.
Yes, you have got a good clue. But you explain, is Brahman the root of everything? So far in Gītā, what have we learned? In the last chapter, what did we read? Where is Brahman coming from?
Prabhuji, Garbhodakshai Vishnu.
No, that is Brahma, Baba. This is Brahman. You know what is Brahman? You have studied 8th chapter. That is the first question Arjuna asked. Kim tat Brahma, kim adhyatma, kim karma, Puruṣottama. You've forgotten. Open. Okay, quickly. We have to come to today's verse also. What is the root of both? Now I've given you a very clear hint. You are muted. Unmute and speak. Okay, no, I don't know. Please. Stop it. I'm not studying 8th chapter now. I just reminded you that we have already covered this long back. Yes, Dolamani Prabhu.
Prabhuji, Supreme Lord is the source of both spiritual and material world.
Yes. So where is the meeting point? Is the root. Because in one case the root is going upwards, but the reality the roots are going downwards. So what is the root? The root is the Param Brahman, the Supreme Lord Krishna. So in this material world, whoever comes in, what he has to give up? He has to give up fruitive activities. And one who is within the 3 modes, he cannot give up these fruitive activities. Not possible. And if he gets an opportunity, and if he tries to cut the fruitive activities, he tries to terminate his fruitive actions. So where does he proceed, or which direction he moves, is the 4th verse that we discussed day before yesterday. Tatha padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyaha. So what is the characteristic of how it is completely different? Because yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuya. That having reached there, one does not have to return. The land of no returns. You know? This is the land of no return. But the planet where we are living is a planet of always return. And where is that land of no return? Tameva chadyam purusham prapadde. Who can reach to that place of no return? One who surrenders. One who surrenders to whom? To Purusham, to the Supreme Brahman, to the Supreme Lord. And who is Supreme? Yata Pravarti Prasarta Purani. From whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So Krishna first 3 verses gives the description of the material world, and now in the next verses he is speaking, in this verse he is speaking about the spiritual existence. So our journey should be from this asat to go to sat. But who can reach there? Is there any criteria? Is there any qualification? Is there any symptom? 2 aspects have been said. Who can be released? First, while being in this material world, one has to become detached. Detached from where? From fruitive actions, from fruitive activities. By giving up asanga, asatsanga, asanga, and then by knowledge. By the aches of knowledge, what he has to do, he has to cut the root of material existence, which is fruitive action, or fruitive activities. And the second part is that he has to surrender. On detachment alone is not sufficient. It will not work. So if he wants to go to the spiritual sky, what he has to do? He has to surrender. Tameva chadyam purusham prapadde. Prapadde means to surrender. What Prabhupada says here in the word meaning. Yeah, prapadde is surrender. From whom everything began. Yata pravrti. Pravrti means from where everything emanates or manifests. So that is the root. So what is the qualification required to go to that land of no returns? This is the very beautiful 5th verse. Very, very important verse in our practice of Krishna consciousness. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvande vimukta sukha dukha sange gachanti amudha padamavyayamta. This is a verse to memorize. Nirman. So the first qualification required to be released or to become detached from this material existence is to be free from mana. Nirman. Nirman does not mean that you construct. Not the Hindi word nirman, this is the Sanskrit word nirman. Nirman. Without having false prestige. Free from false prestige. So everyone in this material world is seeking some prestige, some honor, some recognition, some reward. And you see, in the 13th chapter, we discussed about 20 items of knowledge. Where does this 20 items begin with? Which is the foremost item? Which is the first item? It is the first item of knowledge. Hmm? 13th chapter we bhul gaye.
Humility.
Amanitvam. Amanitvam. So, This mana is the reason for making us remain in this material existence. So one has to give up the false prestige or false honor. And if one gives up mana, then he can be free from moha. What is moha? Mana you understood now. False prestige. And what is moha? Hello, what is moha?
Illusion.
Illusion. What does illusion mean?
Like Prabhuji, Maya.
No, still not clear. What does illusion mean? Ganesh, what is illusion? बोलो बाबा जल्दी बोलो इल्यूशन नहीं पता क्या है इल्यूशन में है या इल्यूशन से बाहर है ये पता ही नहीं इल्यूशन क्या है cannot hear you okay Manish Prabhu you had your hand up and then it is down oh Anishka she just pops up from nowhere bolo
Prabhuji, distractions.
distraction is not the right representation of illusion you understand what is illusion moha no she ran away okay Manish Prabhu
Prabhuji, illusion means considering what is not right is right. So we are not body actually, but we consider ourselves as body. So this bodily conception.
okay very good very close but still not precise yes Dolamani
Yes, so whatever Mahesh told that we accept things which are not actually like we are accepting ourselves as body.
yes that means having attachment for false things moha thinking something which is unreal to be real as a good example that they gave is the biggest moha is considering ourselves to be the body so one who is free from false pride mana and one who is free from illusion and how he can become nirman and free from false pride and from false existence is jita sanga doshaha who has given up false association so one who is free from false association he can be free from illusion and he can be free from false prestige very important previous verse also Prabhupada was talking about sangha asanga shastrena drinena chitva Prabhupada mentioned in the purport the word asanga is very important in this connection because the attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. So here again the Supreme Lord is mentioning that one who is free from false association. And how he becomes free from false association? Adhyatma Nitya. By one who understands the eternal. Nitya means eternal. So one who is trying to understand the eternal, one who is focusing on the Supreme. And he is Vinivritta Kama. He is free from desires, from material desires, or here it is being said as lust. Or the same thing, material desires or material lust is the same thing. Such persons are dvande vimuktaha. They are muktaha. They are free from all dualities and doubts. And they are equipoised in both happiness and distress. Sukha dukkha sange. So such a person who has surrendered to the Supreme Lord and who is free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, and who is also free from material lust, who is free from dualities of happiness and distress, and who unbewildered knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attains the eternal kingdom. So here symptoms of surrender is mentioned, that how we can know that we are in the process of surrendering. So these are the clearly symptoms. So see, we are discussing symptoms so many places in Bhagavad Gītā. In the second chapter, Arjuna inquires about the symptoms. Then where did he inquire? In the 14th chapter, he inquired about the symptom of a person who is in transcendental consciousness. So here he is talking about, Krishna is speaking about the symptoms of a person who is returning to the eternal existence, one who is getting detached from material existence. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself to be the Lord of material nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the surrendering process means that one thinks, man means what? That he thinks that he is superior or he is better than other. He is higher. And nirman means one who has no such feels, that he is higher. He feels he is low, he is less. Such a person is amanitvam. He is not seeking honor and prestige from anyone. Rather, he offers prestige and honor to others. Amanina manadena kirtaniye sadahari. One who can learn to give respects to other without expecting it in return. So such a person is qualified to return home, back to Godhead. That means he is surrendering. If we are surrendering, that means this quality should manifest. That we are no longer interested in seeking honor, recognition, or reward from others. Because the conditioned soul is very puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of material nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of God. It is very difficult to be nirman. Because every action or every endeavor, what are we seeking? We are seeking how we can enhance our man. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not the Lord of material nature. Adhyatma Nitya also means, Adhyatma means the transcendental science, the spiritual knowledge. So when one cultivates knowledge, he is vinivrit kama. The verse says, Adhyatma Nitya vinivrit kama. Nivrit means one who has freed, or one who is purified, or one who has given up. What? Kama. Material desire. One should know by the cultivation of the real knowledge that he is not the Lord of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. I was hearing one lecture, Sarvabhauma Prabhu. He was very humorously but very deeply explaining this conception. He said that previously, in our Vedic ways, the name giving ceremony for a child he was considered Ram Das or Shyam Das. or Bhagavan Das. So by default, he was made to understand that what he is servant. He is not the master. And that conception was implanted in his life right from the very beginning, right from the birth. But now, what names we give to our child? Goldie, Boldy, Holdy, what all nonsense names. And what are they thinking? Everyone is thinking that this world is for their enjoyment, that they can lord it over. So Prabhupada is saying here that one should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not the Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. So that is why Gurukul Vedic way of education was very conducive. Actually, in that Vedic way of education, surrender was inbuilt, but because without surrender one could not sustain. Gurukul life means that the student has to be completely on the mercy of the Guru. You want to know the verse? There is a very beautiful verse given by Narad Muni, which speaks about how a student in Gurukul recites. One second, I'll search that verse. And he was trained in such a way right from his beginning. Seven 12:1. And at that time, in the Gurukul, everyone was to go through this training. 7:12:1. Yeah. First verse. So Narad Muni is saying, Brahmachari Gurukule Vasan Danto Gurur Hitam Acharan Dasavan Nicho Guru Sudrida Sohadrida. Okay. So Narad Muni said a student should practice completely controlling his senses. He should be submissive and should have an attitude of firm friendship for the spiritual master with a great vow. The Brahmachari should live at the Gurukul only for the benefit of the Guru. It is said, wait, let the screen remain here. It is said that Brahmachari Gurukule, Brahmachari in the residence of the Guru, he is Vasandantaha. Nanta means that he is continuously practicing the control of his senses. And why is he existing? Guru Hitam. Whatever actions he performs is only for the benefit of the Guru, that is to please the Guru, not for one's personal benefit. And how is his behavior or his conduct? Acharan Dasvat. Dasvat means humble. He takes a very low position. And Nicha means he is very lower position. Yeah, Nicha is again lower. He is very submissive and obedient to the Guru. And he does all the instruction he follows Sudridha, firmly. And in good spirits, as if the spirit of friendship or goodwill. Okay, so close this. So this is the process of releasing one from pride. And material education systematically, it inflicts pride. Everyone becomes so much puffed up. Prabhupada says here that When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. So submission or surrender is only possible for one who is nirman and one who is nirmoha, who is free from delusion, aversion, delusion, both. So pride is due to illusion, for although one comes here, stays for a brief time and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. So one time I was hearing one story that how people are in delusion or illusion. At one time there was a saintly person. He was passing through a city. So he happened to go to the house of the landlord in that city. And in one corner he started to stay there without seeking permission from anyone. So when the landlord came to know about it, he became very wild. He became very angry. And he told his guards to throw this saintly person out without any permission. How dare he stay in my place? Or how dare he try to occupy my place? So when the guard came and they were using force to throw this person out, who was on pilgrimage. So this person insisted that I will only go out when you call the owner here. So the guards went and requested and told the owner that that person is not leaving without speaking to you. So that owner came with a lot of pride and anger, exhibiting anger. And he asked that pilgrim that how dare you stay in my place without seeking my permission? Who gave you the permission to stay here? You just leave and get lost from here. So in this way he was chastising. But that person who was on pilgrimage, he was cool and calm. So he asked that how can you say that this place is yours? What basis do you claim that this is your place? So this person who belonged to this property belonged to him, he said that this is my place. How? Because it was given to me by my father. It belongs to me. So this person asked that where is your father? He says he is no longer there. He has left. He has gone to the heavenly planet. So he said, okay. So it did not belong to your father, and now you are saying it belongs to you. And when you leave, to whom will it belong? He said to his son, I have a son. So he said, see, this is the place where there is no permanent owner. Previously, you said that it belonged to your father, and your father is no more. Now you are claiming it is yours, but soon when you will leave, your son will inherit. So the ownership is being changed. So this is what? This is as compared to a dharamshala. And what is dharamshala? Where passengers come and leave. Why you are having this false pride that it belongs to you? Similarly, everything of this material world existed before we came. We did not invent it, or we did not create it. It was always there. And it will remain here even after we leave. So what is man? What is the reason of having pride? And the Krishna is very clearly saying it is only because of illusion. Illusion. When Prabhupada first met Albert Ford, who is the great grandson of Henry Ford, the legendary Henry Ford, Prabhupada asked only one question. with Alfred Ford, that where is Henry Ford now? You know, where is he? And that brought so much of awakening to his great grandson, Mr. Albert Ford, that he became a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. That is Amrish Prabhu now, who is the main person who is building TOVP, Temple of Vedic Planetarium in Mayapur. He immediately surrendered to Prabhupada. Why? Because his mana and moha both were removed in one meeting with Prabhupada. Such a person who is free from man and moha can only surrender. Why we are struggling so much in our journey to the spiritual world? Because we are not giving up both. Neither we are giving up man nor moha. Pride is due to illusion, for although one comes here and stays for a brief time and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. Who is the proprietor of this world? What Krishna declared in the 9th chapter? क्या वो ऑडियो काम नहीं कर रहा क्या? What did Krishna say in the 9th chapter? In the 10th chapter?
Aham sarvasva prabhavo
Yeah.
matta sarvamvartha.
And he is the root. He is the reason. He is the proprietor. Maya adhyakshena prakriti suyata sacharachana. So one has to get out of this false notion that the human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from false association. What is the false association? Caused by familial, social, and national affections. Very clear, Prabhupada is precisely giving diagnosing the disease, where the illusion is coming from familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. When one is free from all this false association, it comes to this stage to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. Between Sat and Asat. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is why this knowledge is so very essential. Because without being situated in knowledge, we will never be free from ignorance or illusion. And unless and until we are free from ignorance and illusion, there is no question of submission or surrender. So these are the attributes or qualities which are required for one who can extricate this material existence, who can with determination cut the roots of this material tree, this banyan tree. And where he reaches to the spiritual sky, to the spiritual abode of the Supreme Lord. And he's contrasting what is the significant difference between the spiritual world and as compared to the material world. In first 3 verses, he spoke about the material world. And in the 4th verse, he spoke about the spiritual world. He gave a hint, a glimpse. And the 5th verse explained that what are the qualities or characteristics required in a person to be able to go beyond this material existence and enter into the spiritual world. And what is the nature of the spiritual world? How it is different from the material world? What is so special about the spiritual world? Krishna speaks in the 6th verse. Na tad bhasyate suryo na sashanko na pavaka yad gatvana nivartante tadhamam paramam mama. So this material world is always compared to be in darkness. It always requires some external source of illumination or light. That is why we say in the invocation prayers, Om Agyana Timirandhasya. It is not just dark, it makes everyone blind. Because when there is completely dark, what can we see? We are blinded. Can we see anything? Although we have vision, what is the value of that vision? Because without light, we cannot see anything. But the spiritual world, where there is no ignorance, there is always illumination. So much illumination that there is no need for neither the sun nor the moon. Na tad bhasyate surya. The supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Krishna did not speak of electricity. Krishna is only speaking about na shashanko na pavaka. Shashanka is the moon and pavaka is the fire. But Prabhupada has purposefully added electricity here because in modern times people know light means electricity. So they will say, okay, this world has electricity, or maybe the spiritual world there is no electricity. So Prabhupada is saying, no, there is no question of electricity there also. Neither the sun nor the moon, no other source is required. And what is the principal characteristic of that abode or that world is yad gatva na nivartante. Again, Krishna is speaking. In the 4th verse, he spoke about it. Yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuya. Same thing. Yad gatva na nivartante. Now, what is so special about that place? Tad dhamam paramam ma. That is my supreme abode. Those who reach there never return to this material world, where the Supreme Lord himself resides. Dhama, Dhama means the resting place. Of whose? Paramam, the Supreme. Mama, Krishna is speaking, is mine. That is the resting place of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Lok, Golok, Vrindavan, is described here. So what a contrast. Material world, every time, always what we require some resource to remove the darkness. But the spiritual world, there is no darkness. No darkness means there is no illusion. There is no delusion. There is clarity. There's no bewilderment. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity because all the planets are self-luminous. We have only one planet in this universe the sun, which is self-luminous. But all other planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. No? But all other planets in the spiritual sky are dependent on sun. There is some printing mistake here. Because it says we have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous. All others are dependent on sun. But all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. Is the same written there in your book, or is it properly presented?
Yes, Prabhuji, it's written only there. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun.
That is true, which is self-luminous. And what is written in the next statement?
But all planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous.
Okay, yes, but all planets. So here in this material world, there is only sun which is self-luminous, and every other planet or in this universe is dependent on the sun to provide illumination. But in the spiritual sky, all planets are self-illuminating. That is why there is no need of sun. The shining effulgence of those planets called Vaikunthas constitute the shining sky known as Brahma Jyoti. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Golok Vrindavan. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahatattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of the shining sky is full of spiritual planet, which is called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Golok Vrindavan. So as long as the living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditioned life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through this false perverted tree of material world, he becomes liberated. So how he becomes liberated? What is the foremost element in liberation? How from the conditioned life one can come to the stage of being liberated? We discussed. Bolo. I am reinforcing, repeating. Shreya, you are not hearing?
Hearing, Prabhuji.
So why don't you reply?
Prabhuji, by cutting our false ego and more and man, then we can reach the spiritual sky.
Microphone is not tuned. Lot of echo. Cannot hear. Yes, Donamani Prabhu.
Which is nirmana, that without expecting any respect from other.
How one can come to the stage of not expecting? We know this now. Don't we know this for so many years of our practice? Amanitvam, adambhitvam, or nirmana. But is it happening? Why? Because what is still existing?
Pride.
Yeah, pride is existing because of illusion. Moha. Prabhupada is saying here, why one is having pride? Because of moha. So as long as the living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditioned life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through this false perverted tree of material world, he becomes liberated, then there is no chance of his coming back. In his conditioned life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. So Prabhupada says one should be captivated by this information. One should become very enthused, very enlivened, very much energized. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal word and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. How to do that? How to be detached from this material world? One has to associate himself with devotees. Prabhupada is giving the solution. See? One has to associate himself with devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. Prabhupada is speaking to those who are wearing saffron. Don't think that by just changing dress, one has become released or one has become detached. No. One cannot become detached from the attraction of this material world simply by dressing himself in a saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Like we were discussing day before yesterday also. That this is the natural state that the soul has to be becoming attached. The soul will have desires. And the soul can never be inactive. So what one has to do? One has to become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. We have to dovetail. Prabhupada uses the word dovetail or attachment. Where the attachment has to be towards service, towards sadhana, towards submission. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service as described in the 12th chapter is the only way to get out of this false representation of real truth. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is prescribed as purely transcendental. The words Paramam Mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is Paramam, full of 6 opulences. The Katha Upanishad 2:15 also confirms that in the spiritual world, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, or stars. Na tatra surya bhati, na chanda tatra kam. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. So one aspect of detachment is that one who is surrendering. Only when one is surrendering, he can become detached. And one can be free from mana and moha and sanga dosha. So in summarizing to what we have discussed in the last 3 verses is through the process of cultivating knowledge, and through knowledge one naturally becomes detached. And in that detached situation, when one performs devotional service under guidance, as Prabhupada is saying, one has to associate himself with a devotee, those who are in Krishna consciousness. And what he has to do in that association, he has to learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. Otherwise, it is impossible. What it means to perform devotional service? Devotional service means that you have to perform under someone's authority. So we have to take a submissive position. When we have a submissive position, what we cannot exhibit? We cannot exhibit man. Okay, I'll stop here. So Krishna is contrasting. You see, you saw in the first 3 verses, Krishna spoke about the material existence. And the next 3 verses, Krishna spoke about the spiritual planets, the spiritual existence. And then in the next verses, Krishna will speak about the living entity, the 3 potencies of the Lord. Superior energy, the Vaikuntha planets, the material energy, which is the earthly planets, or just universal creation. And then the third aspect is the living entities. So Krishna will speak about the living entities in the next verses, from beginning from 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Okay. So far, any question or any discussion? What is the time? Okay. Hopefully, we will close in time today, so that we can all sleep. I am seeing those who are sending their sadhana card also. Again, we have gone back to the same ways. Everyone is trying to sleep after 10. And again, after a few days, your sadhana cards will be stopped. Why? Because you will not be able to wake up in time. Most important discipline is to be able to sleep in time. That is very difficult. It requires really being situated in goodness. Even waking up is not so difficult. I wake up every day. No problem. But to be able to sleep in the scheduled time, it requires very high degree of discipline. And I don't see anyone aspiring for that. Not even aspiring. What time you are sleeping, Kana?
Prabhuji, 10.
10 or after 10? It must be before 10. It must be before 10. Otherwise, there will be only struggle and struggle. Why? Because it's mana and moha and sangha, we are not willing to give up. This is our most prized possession in this material existence. So it will keep us in material existence. It will not allow us to be released. How many of you chanted yesterday 25 rounds or more? Dipankar, you could not chant?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. No, Prabhuji, I do not sleep by 10, Prabhuji.
I am asking, were you able to chant 25 rounds yesterday?
No, Prabhuji. Today I completed 20 rounds only, Prabhuji.
No, I am asking yesterday was the Kashi, na? Today is not the
20 rounds only, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
We're not even aspiring. Why we are not able to chant? Because we don't sleep in time. And we don't sleep in time, we don't wake up in time. We are not preparing to be able to chant. Not even that desire is not there. That even the faintest of desire is not there. Anyway, we are reading, studying, sharing, but it has to be applied. Then only the advantage will come. If it is not applied, it will not. This is a science. If there is a cause, then there will be the effect. Okay, I'll stop here. Tomorrow we will see about the marginal energy. Krishna spoke about the superior energy of the spiritual world. Krishna also contrasted with the material world, the inferior energy. Now Krishna will speak about the marginal energy. Okay. So thank you very much. Prabhu, what about book distribution? No reports are coming. Ravindra Prabhu, what is the report from your place? How many books are distributed there?
Prabhuji, already 50 books are distributed and I have arranged a program in 5th. तो उसमें हो जाएगा लगभग 100 books.
Very good. Very good. You took how much? More than 200 books.
Yes, yes.
Very good. What about IARI? I read, Jagnesh distributed 5 books. He sent a message. You people have thought that book distribution is over. Target has met. How many of you are there? You make a list, and how many books you have distributed so far? And what about the pledging? There was a pledging done, Gulamani Prabhu. So please review, please call up people, wake them up. Okay, so we are closing now. Srimad Bhagavad Gītā ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Upasthit